Okay, colleagues, the recording is on. The session will officially commence. We are here today for the tender for the Vaal University of Technology. It's for the removal of asbestos, roof elements, and replacing of roofs and repairs of other components on SEBOKENG campus. Removal of asbestos, roof elements, and replacing of roofs and repairs of other components on SEBOKENG campus for the Vaal University of Technology. Bid tender number PU 7210/022. Colleagues, if you are not here for this bid, you are welcome to leave the session currently. But of course, if you are here for it, you are obviously welcome to stay, regardless. Colleagues, as I've said before, and I'll say it a few times during the session, that this is a compulsory online briefing session. How we're going to verify your attendance of the session is that we request that you please insert your company details on the chat box on MS Teams. Okay, company details, which is your company name, contact person, email address, and telephone number onto the chat box. That's how we're going to use to verify your attendance of this session. Please, colleagues, note to please complete that chat box. The front page of this bid is just your details that you'll complete here and the price offer right at the bottom. The key is that this bid document is also accompanied by a BOQ pricing where you need to complete that BOQ. Colleagues must correspond with the price offer here, meaning the total here and the total of the BOQ must correspond here. So it's important that the two correspond, but you must complete the price offer, VAT inclusive 15%. Just to backtrack, I think I just moved a little bit too fast. I forgot to introduce myself. Colleagues, my name is Tsepo Mampuru. I'm a contracts manager here at PERCO SA, and I will be facilitating this process on behalf of the university. I am joined by other colleagues from the university, notably Mr. Franz Ayube, who is the project owner in this regard, and he will also be taking the team or this meeting through just some of the scope of work and evaluation process that's going to be followed. Over and above that, I'm also joined by my colleagues from PERCO, Ms. Posisa Mogona, which you've seen on the advert, and also William Shiramakulu is also in this session. Colleagues, page 2 of this bid is just the table of contents that I won't go through it. I will start on page 3. Page 3 again is just tender data that we've included here. Colleagues, you'll notice that in terms of the notice, this is again a tender for the removal of asbestos roof elements and replacing of roofs and repairs of other components on SEBOKENG campus. It's a CADB contractor grading 4GB. Of course, another element was that we required registration with the Asbestos Association, of which we'll go through it now, and so forth. We are currently in an online briefing session, compulsory from 10 to 11, and the link is in this bid document. It was also in the advert. The tender document is still available for purchase after this bid, colleagues, via the PERCO SA website, a fee of 1150. It's an online purchase. So what will happen is that once you go onto our tender page, you will see we're running several tenders at the go. You need to select the specific tender. In this regard, this specific tender for asbestos at VUT. It'll take you to a payment portal. From that payment portal, it will take you to our payment provider, which is PayFast. Then again, you follow the process. You'll see it will ask you to select the bank that you're using. You'll also be asked to log into your bank so that you can process the payment. Colleagues, it's just an interface. So there's no moving of your app, banking app to our website or our website to your banking app. It's just obviously an interface so that you can process the payment accordingly. Literally, it's less than 5 seconds process where after the payment has been verified, you will then get access to all the documentation for this bid. So you'll be redirected to the website where you can download this bid documents. Should you encounter any problems, colleagues, please contact the PERCO SA office and we'll endeavor to assist you accordingly. Again, this tender will be facilitated in accordance with VUT policy, SCN policy and infrastructure policy. The closing date for this bid, colleagues, is Tuesday, the 21st of June, 2022 at 23:59. Colleagues, it's an online submission again, so there's no hard copy submission either at VUT or PERCO SA. The submission is online. The submission link is in this bid document. Once you click on the link, it will take you to a submission page, a unique submission page that you have. Obviously, there between now and the closing date of that bid, you are able to go back and forth in terms of uploading documents, removing documents, changing whatever details you want to change, and so forth. But note that on 21st of June at 23:59, that link will not longer be accessible. In any case, you'll not be able to use that link anymore. So please, I urge you that after the session or even tomorrow or way before the closing date, you please keep going back to that link. Make sure you familiarize yourself with the process followed, all the documents you need to upload, back and forth, so that at least you don't be stuck with the hassles closer to the closing date. So that is the urge from our side, colleagues. You know, with technology, nothing is guaranteed. Therefore, we're urging you to start now. If you've got the documents ready now, start uploading now. Don't wait for 11 o'clock on the 21st of June 2022 and want to start that process. And when you encounter problems, you want to call the PERCOSA office for assistance. No one, colleagues, will be able to assist you at that time. So we do urge you to please start that process as soon as possible. So that obviously you can, submit on time. From our side, from VUT side, no one is able to access that submission page until the closing date has passed. So in terms of security accessibility, be rest assured that everything is secured. Colleagues, from an inquiries perspective, all inquiries, colleagues, must go through the PERCOSA office. My email address is there through myself. Do not attempt to contact anyone at the university. The process is facilitated by PERCOSA for a reason, and therefore all communication must go through our office. Please, colleagues, don't get yourself in a tangle with things that are outside of the rules of engagement. Make sure that you stick to the inquiries, and then you stick to what is it that we obviously want to achieve with this process. Colleagues, again, this is just tender details. Validity period is 90 days and so forth. These are just some of the clauses of the tender that you'll see in any VUT tender for infrastructure. Colleagues, then we also have a link to the opening session of the bid. So on the 22nd of June, I'm just not sure about the time, but the 22nd of June, there will be an opening of the bids. And at that opening session, colleagues, you're welcome to attend. It's not compulsory. You don't have to attend. But if you want to attend and know who are the other bidders that submitted proposals, you're able to do that. We're not going to be reading out any pricing at that session. It's going to be purely limited to the names of the bids. So you're welcome to attend, but it's not a compulsory session. My email address again is there, colleagues. These are just clarification questions. If you need clarity, colleagues, after the session, we can still assist you and so forth. Again, just the submission link, closing date, validity period of the tender. Please go read and understand these clauses. And if you're not sure, please ask us. Again, the link to the submission and so forth. Colleagues, clause F.3.18 speaks about a service fee that needs to be paid to PERCO SA. It's a 2% service fee that is payable to PERCO SA to the value of the total value of the project. Meaning that whatever invoice you are sending to VUT for this project, a minimum of, a 2% service fee will be charged by our finance team. You need to make provision for that 2% service fee. The BOQ does not make provision for that. In a sense that there's no separate line item for the 2% service fee, but know that indeed it will be charged to the supplier. So I don't know, I don't want to obviously run your businesses. You'll say whether how you're going to factor that in. You can do whatever obviously you're going to do. But just know that the awarded bidder will be subjected to a 2% service fee that is payable to the consortium. Now, just a bit of background around the 2% service fee. PERCO is owned by VUT. It's owned by the other 25 public universities in the country as well. They're shareholders in the business, and they started the business back in 1978. We're an extension of the procurement department. So in the case where they can't facilitate any procurement-related matters for whatever reasons, be capacity issues, political issues, all of those things, they'll typically come to us to assist. But the process is still run in conjunction with the VUT policy. HERCO is a non-profit organization, colleagues. So the 2% service fee that is collected on a monthly basis, it actually paid back to the university at the end of the year, in conjunction with the other contracts that VUT, that we've assisted VUT in, and other contracts that VUT participates in. So just know the flow of that we are a non-profit organization. The 2% service fee will ultimately become funds of the university. Just sharing that, but again, for the purpose of this session is just to know that you must make provision for that 2% service fee. Colleagues, at this point, I'll probably just hand over to Mr. Jan Hubert to go through all of these mandatory requirements. I just want to draw your attention to just right at the bottom, T2.2.L, proof of registration of principal contractor as a registered asbestos contractor with the Chief Director of Provincial Operations. Note that that is also a compulsory requirement over and above the CIDB and other requirements, so that I'm sure you also saw that in the advert. Mr. Francois Hubert, I think I'm going to hand over to you, and then you can take us through.
Thanks, Tsepo. Is my mic quite clear? Can everybody hear me?
I can hear you quite clearly on my side. I think
Great, excellent. Let me just share. Right, everybody see the screen?
It's still coming. It's, yeah, we can see it now.
Okay,
now we
can you see it? Right. Good, it's there. You can see it. Okay, thank you, everybody. We're dealing with PU 7210-022, removal of asbestos roof elements and replacing of roofs and repairs of other components on the SEBOKENG campus. The contents, we'll deal with introduction, Google map and the site map, or site plan rather, the scope of the work specifications, just very brief, a photo of affected buildings, functionality and quality scoring, evaluation process, pricing, and then questions and answers. So you've got time at the end to ask any questions. In terms of the introduction, various buildings on the SEBOKENG campus were identified to contain asbestos elements. The affected buildings are used for administrative purposes, research and development, storage and lecturing. These buildings will be in use while replacement of the elements are affected. In line with Occupational Health and Safety Act of 1993 and specific reference to the abated asbestos regulations of 2020, the buildings containing asbestos roof elements need to be removed, or the elements need to be removed to ensure the buildings remain safe for usage. Okay, so the location of the SEBOKENG campus, for those of you who have not done so, the N1 is now to the left of this picture. SEBOKENG is basically in the upper right-hand corner. You can see part of it sticking out. And there, where the red dot is, that's where the Science Park or SEBOKENG campus is situated. That's it there. Now that little area there is basically blown up here with a little site map. I've highlighted the buildings, EAEB, EC, ED, EE, EF, EG, EK, EL, EN, ER, EQ, ES, and ET. This information is also in the tender document, so it is there, so you don't have to take snapshots. This is the rest of the campus here, and then there are also student residents off-site there, but our operations will be limited to this. If you look at the site plan, you'll see there is another newer building there, which is now not on this map there. It'll be just to the left of this, just so that you don't get confused. These buildings are all single-story buildings, temporary buildings built with asbestos cement, and I'll show you now on the photos so that you've got a good feel for what the work is about. Okay, in terms of the scope, these older single-story buildings on the SEBOKENG campus contain asbestos cement. These elements are the roof sheeting, the fascia, obviously the ridge cappings, the gutters, and the downpipes. These buildings are buildings E, A, B, C, D, F, G, H, E, J, K, L, N, Q, and R. These asbestos-containing elements must be handled and disposed of in accordance with appropriate legislation and regulations. Roof sheeting, gutters, and downpipes will be replaced with steel sheeting, steel gutters, and downpipes. That is part of the same contract. And we expect that work completion should be done in 4 months' time. As was mentioned, and it is also stated in the health and safety specification, that clause 7.2.1 says specifically the principal contractor shall be a registered asbestos contractor with the chief director of provincial operations. That is part of legislation's requirements. Photos of the typical work you can see here. This is block E, A, and E, B's, basically offices, temporary buildings, asbestos roofs. So the roof sheetings have to be removed and replaced with steel sheets as specified. The trusses are generally in a good conditions. There are some trusses which are steel. There are some trusses which are timber. Here and there might be a little bit damage to timber elements due to where roof sheetings have been damaged. Allowance has been made for replacement of some elements, but it's rather the exception. Important thing will be you can't just go and remove all the asbestos one shot and leave those buildings open for a week or two, and rain comes, these buildings will be in operation. So it'll be important that your removal of the asbestos roof sheetings must go hand in hand with the replacement of this with steel sheeted roof sheetings as you go along. So that's quite important to understand. Typical toilet blocks, there's 2 of those, blocks E, H, and E, J, so you can see how they look like. And typically your typical gable ends of the buildings, what they look like. You can see the asbestos downpipes and gutters quite clearly. These buildings basically all look the same. Very little variation in the buildings. In terms of functionality and quality scoring, please look at your T21, where tender data, where it's required for you to provide various returnable documents, such as your proof of bidder capacity. These returnable documents under T2.1 are not compulsory, but should you not submit them, you will lose points in your functionality scoring. So it's important for you to provide those documents. CIDB rating, as was stated in the beginning of Tsepo's presentation, was a 4GB. The functionality scoring is basically proof of working capital, 5 points, locality, 10 points, annual financial statements, 5 points. The tender document is fairly clear on, well, not fairly, it's quite clear on how these points will be allocated. Experience and resource capacity, similar value and nature projects, 15 points. Reference letters, 15 points. Business entity organogram, 5 points. Schedule of subcontractors, 5 points. Project specific organogram, 15 points. Technical approach and methodology with a project specific method statement. Now, please don't give us a generic one with just speak to ordinary building projects. This is not an ordinary project. We want to see, or the evaluators would like to see, that you understand what is at hand with this project. So that's 10 points. Detailed trade program and critical path, 5 points. Health and safety compliance is 10 points. And then please take note, a minimum of 60 points is required for functionality for further evaluation. Tepu, it has been asked on the previous tender briefings, and I suppose you will do the same. Tenderers have asked whether the PERCO can make available on the website the functionality so that contractors can have a look at that and see whether they will be able to get their 60 points before they buy the tender documents.
Yeah.
Tepo, I presume you're going to do the same for this one as well.
Definitely, Franzo, we're going to do the same, yeah. Colleagues must not be uploaded on our website, so we're not sending to anyone. They must just go on our website and they'll see it. Okay.
So please, everybody, look at the website and get that if you want to do that before you buy the documentation. So yeah, so the evaluation process, we've talked briefly about it, part of it already, the returnable documents, part T2.1 for the functionality scoring, the mandatory returnable documents, part T2.2. This is critical. Make very sure you don't miss anything out there. If you miss out a document there, you will be disqualified for further evaluation. So it's really critical that you spend your time there and provide those documents. And then lastly, on the evaluation process, the 80-20 criteria also to be provided as part of T2.2, sorry, G, for the BE certificate, and also SPD B 6.1 for the preference points. So you can provide that document or certified copies thereof. Then in terms of pricing, the bill of quantities, basically just the preliminary in general, the alterations, that is the removal of asbestos cement elements portion, then the carpentry and joining, the roof coverings, roof insulation, and rainwater disposal elements. So 3, 4, 5, and 6 is basically normal building operations, but very important. Number 2 is then for the asbestos handling, removal, and ultimate disposal thereof. The total is to be carried over to the form of offer and acceptance and the front page. Okay, so are there any questions?
Yeah.
Let me just quickly stop my. Let me just quickly stop my presentation, my sharing at least. Okay, there you are.
Yeah. Thanks, Jan. Before we open questions and answers, colleagues, just to note the BOQ document that we've been making reference to is here. Just must see.
Yeah, it's part of the tender document.
It is part of the tender document. Yeah, it's there. Yeah. I'm just seeing something that you might need to change, Johan, but we'll discuss it after. Colleagues, I'm going to officially then open the question and answer phase of the session. I will ask that we operate in a fashion of raising your hands. Therefore, after that, we'll recognize you and take the question accordingly. Silence, let me start with you. Silence, go ahead.
Just unmute.
Okay.
Unmute.
Thank you. Yes, my question is on the item of alterations here under 2.1.1 under the removal of asbestos roof sheets. Because here I see it is not quantified. And as it is, I feel like it is difficult to for one to price, because the other thing is that we are having a visual briefing session. We are not on site. We don't have the length or the square meterage of each roof of the building. So it's going to be difficult just to say it's an item, no quantities of say this is square meters. At least if then it was going to be, if then it was in square meters, it was going to be easy for us to price. So as an item, yeah, it's a bit difficult. Thank you.
Okay, Silence, if you want to look at your item 4.2.1 in the bill of quantities. You'll see there the roof covering is measured 3,275 square meters, so that'll basically replace what is there. Okay. Then you can take also all the meterage of the roof gutters, and that will give you what you're going to remove. So everything is there. You must just look at the items that you will have to replace it with. That's where the quantities basically are.
All right, thanks. No, I'm answered.
Great.
All right, Fazar. Liano Construction, Fazar, Liano Construction. Please unmute.
Good morning, Tepo. How are you? I just have a question under health and safety. 2.1, it says health and safety documentation, right? Please, can you clarify what you mean by documentation? Like, do you need an index, a baseline risk assessment, or a sheet plan?
Sorry, which page is this?
T2.1G, it's page 19. Health and safety compliance documentation.
Okay, Francois, you wanna to page
Let
19?
me just quickly get there. Sorry. Page 19.
Mhm. I think it's just the cover page.
Is it just the index? Do you need a baseline risk assessment, or do you need a sheet plan?
Let me just get to the health and safety part. Okay, I think let me get back to you guys on what is it in terms of the health and safety specifications that you have to submit here. Is it fine with you, Tsepo, that we can upload that information?
That is fine, Francois.
Clarification.
That's fine. I just want to see in terms of the because I think Francois, it's the same as the other bids because
Yes.
we've got a health and safety right at the bottom, but
Yes.
for the purpose of evaluation, this section is what we're referring to, because you need to submit a health and safety officer.
Yes.
With a diploma and registration with SEBOKENG. Yeah. So it is here actually.
Yes.
For us.
Okay. Okay, so that's the safety officer's information that must be submitted there. Okay, that makes good sense.
I don't know if I'm saying your name, but Fazai, are you covered?
Thank you so much, Tepo and Francois.
Yeah. Peter, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Yeah. Morning, colleagues. I think two questions that I needed clarity. One, it's your locality in terms of the bidder that will be winning the tender in terms of your locality, your 30%. I think that need to be clarified also on this briefing. The other one, I think you need to check with the department in terms of the grading. I will give you a little bit of a background. There was a tender in Maincheck. That was a tender that was removing of asbestos. According to the department, in terms of asbestos, they don't consider the grading. So please just check that and come back to us. Check with the department, because there was a dispute about the grading in terms of removal of asbestos, and the department, the labor department, they were saying they don't deal with grading in terms of the asbestos. That's another one. The other one, I need more clarity in terms of your health and safety, because you are going to use the AIA in terms of dealing with everything that the operations of removal of asbestos, compliance and everything. You need to have an AIA on the side, which is the guy that will making a recommendation and just make sure that everything is being compliance. So maybe just give us the clarity. You need a safety health, and you need also the AIA report, because after the removal of the asbestos sheet, the place must be declared in terms of by AIA to say there's no asbestos, then people they can coming and working or doing whatever. So those are the requirements in terms of the asbestos. But maybe for now I can stop. Then I'll raise some more questions when the discussion is taking place. Thanks, Sebo.
Thank you, Peter. I can respond to two of your questions. The first one, remember the locality is as per the functionality. We give, obviously, if you're in the VAL area, there's certain amounts of points that you score. The subcontracting element, we are not saying it's compulsory. What we are saying is that obviously you're dealing in the VAL area. If you're going to subcontract, I mean, based on your own business process and so forth, and the history of the area, you know, ideally, are you going to subcontract in the VAL area or outside of the VAL area? So there's no position or a protocol of the university with regards to the VAL area and people in the VAL area and so forth. All we're saying is that be cognizant of that fact, that indeed the university is in the VAL. And ideally, you know, you'd have to look at those aspects around other things that could affect the implementation of the project. With regards, I think your third point, remember the bid document makes provision for legislative requirements in terms of what is best practice. The criteria looks for a health and safety officer. But we are covered in the sense that, look, if legislation is saying you must have that AI officer to come clear the area, then it's in your board to make sure that you comply with all those aspects. So it's not a shortfall in terms of the requirements. The requirement just wants you to have a health and safety officer, but you need to also comply with all legislative requirements regarding the industry. The second part, I don't know, just remind us, Peter, I think Francois, it was regarding the grading aspect of it, and Francois, you'll correct me here. Peter, look, you're quite right, because when we looked at the specifications, it is two different areas, but I think there is some sort of construction work that's required. And that construction work goes with a certain level of CIDB grading. Hence, we are aware that definitely an asbestos guy might not have the CIDB, but the requirement is that then you have to come with somebody with that. Francois, I don't know if I'm saying it correctly.
Correct. Yeah, there's building elements, normal building elements as well in terms of the replacement of the roofing and so forth. So we do want you to have somebody on board that is capable, especially to be able to work at a pace that that is required to not expose these buildings to weather over a long time. So we want a contractor or a subcontractor that can deal with the work.
Thanks, Francis. Yeah, Peter, so those elements, you quite it's things that we dissected and comfortable in terms of the approach. Are you covered in terms of how we've responded?
Partially. Yeah, it means you're saying if you appoint a person that is meeting the requirement in terms of the construction and also including the asbestos also, it means what you are saying if you are going to appointing a person that is meeting the requirement with the CIDB level 4 and that guy doesn't have asbestos certificate, then he'll doing the JV with the person that has got asbestos certificate. Are you going to accept in that? Because that's why I was asking this question, because I've realized that's what I was going to asking other components, because you're saying you've got construction, you've got removal of asbestos. Actually, they were supposed to be separated, but I respect your decision. This is how you see your business. But asbestos on its own, you've got its own requirement, you've got its own handling, it's got all the other things, and your construction also is also different from the removal of asbestos. So that's going to be my second question, or maybe give me the clarity in terms of are you going to accept the JV if you are appointing the person that meeting the requirement, but it doesn't have an asbestos certificate, and then allowing the JV to take place? I think I'm covered if you can answer him on that one.
Look, from a compliance perspective, Peter, if you're coming as a JV, you need to satisfy all the requirements. Or even if you're coming as a partnership consortium, or even a service provider, the university won't appoint a business that won't show us a CIDB grading of 4, or won't show us a registration of with asbestos. Whether you're coming that in the form of a joint venture or whatever form you're coming in, the point contractor must meet those minimum requirements. So it's a matter of, if you are predominantly in the asbestos, as an example, I'm not saying do this, if you're predominantly in the asbestos service provider, then it will mean that you'll need to find a subcontractor or partner or whatever means who's got a CIDB grading and submit that proposal accordingly.
I'm covered for now. Maybe I'll come also later, just giving other colleagues, maybe they want to ask more questions, I'll come later, but for now, I'm okay.
Thank you, Dad. If you can just lower your hand, Peter. Lincoln, construction.
Hi, good morning to all. Just a quick question. I see that you guys or your requirement is that the buildings will be occupied when the asbestos has been removed, but legislation and requirements will not allow that at all. So I don't know how they would be able to handle this project within 4 months to have all those roofs removed and replaced with the weather conditions and with the shortage of supply of steel and roof sheeting. I think just some clarity needs to be given, because the Department of Labour will not grant you permission to remove asbestos while there is somebody in the vicinity.
Okay, we take note of that. I think, Tsepo, I think the important thing is then put in an alternative proposal, submit your tender and put in an alternative proposal stating these facts, with then what you consider then to be the alternative for that.
Francois, again, not to temper with obviously what's been approved. Look, Lincoln, thanks for that. I think the issue is that those issues can be ironed out also in the SL in terms of implementation. If we've specified in a way that we're going to approach it this way, let's evaluate that way. But those are not matters that will necessarily derail your submission. It's a matter of that when the award is happening and then we're dealing with these operational issues, we can iron out and say, guys, maybe this aspect we need to change and approach it that way. So it's more on project implementation. But you can submit an alternative, but just note how the tender will be evaluated. Are you covered, Lincoln? I want people to say they are covered. Hi, Lincoln?
I think that's okay.
Okay. Colleagues, all right, I'm going to take another round of questions. I'm not seeing any hands. So the second bite at questions.
Seen as a rival at the moment.
Sorry, Francois?
Sorry, I think, was there somebody coming up? Somebody show a hand, maybe?
There's no hands on my side.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe just a quick recap. I'm not sure if anybody joined after you initially started your side of the project. But maybe I can just briefly just reaffirm again that I think it's F3.18 for anybody that have joined and maybe have missed out that part. Please take cognizance of in the tender data the 2% that must be paid by from each of the payment certificates must be paid back to PERCO. That accommodation of the 2% must be done within your pricing. So make sure that you work that 2% into your pricing. Otherwise, that's going to come out of your pocket. And if you didn't allow for that, that's going to be very painful. So make sure that you have allowed that. Unfortunately, it's not PERCO's does not know, allow or prefer that we do not allow that in the bill of quantities as an item. So it is, you have to accommodate it within your pricing structure.
Thanks, Francois. Peter?
Yes, Brother. I think I just want to make a follow-up on the previous question that we're asking in terms of the removal and non-treatment costs. Remember, when according to the law, when you are going to remove an asbestos, people that are, let's say, let's use this as a school, as a university now, people must be 100 meters away from where we're going to remove the asbestos. And even if before they enter in the place, the department must come and clear that site and giving you the certificate. So I was here when I think it's one of your colleagues was saying that you are not going to be able to open the building and leave it for 2 weeks and whatever. Because once you remove, the inspector will come and will say there's no asbestos, then we'll bring the sheeting, on top of that. So please don't, let us not make mistakes. Let us make sure that we're closing all the loopholes. But the law, it says if you're going to work with an asbestos, 100 meters, people must be aware of that. Only people that have been trained to deal with an asbestos that are going to be allowed the area. You must barricade in the area. No one have got an access into until the inspector giving you the clearance certificate. Thanks, Brother.
Thanks, Brother Peter. Look, I think, what we can do so that everyone's comfortable, because I sense maybe you just want us to play, I mean, of course, you guys are in the sector. What front, so we can just discuss after if we must remove that element around people being present in buildings while this is done and just say as per legislation. Because for me, those are aspects that come, when you're doing the implementation of the project. For now, it's get the service provider there, and then we're still going to sign an SLA, and we're still going to deal with those issues that you say, guys, maybe here we need to fall within the prescripts of the law. But it doesn't affect the evaluation.
No, should not.
Yeah. Colleagues, last round of questions. It's 10:49. Lincoln?
Tsepo, excuse me, but I don't agree with what you guys are, your point is. This is the reason why we have a site meeting, is to clarify all these issues. And if you're just saying it will be handled off afterwards, it will definitely have an adverse effect on the tender price and all the end price. So I can't understand how this will be handled, because it's issues that need to be addressed, because it influences the pricing.
Yeah, Lincoln, that's fine. That's why in my comment now, I said to Francois, then we'll touch base after, and then just make sure it's in line with legislation. Just educate us, because again, when you say it affects the pricing, at what level?
Well, with regards to exactly what the site needs to be cleared, then approved by Department of Labor. To get Department of Labor to come to site, we don't have control of it. So that area will be exposed for anything from a week to 4 weeks before an inspector can come. So who's responsible for any damages? Should it rain? Should there be theft of the copper cables or anything? Who's responsible for that? That's what we're trying to tell you guys, is that it's not that easy as what you guys are just putting it there.
And part of the tender, Francois, is that this appointed service provider will need to do all of that, right?
Yes. Well, when you say all of that, in terms of getting the department to come and inspect and preparing the the removal of the asbestos, etc. Yes, obviously that's all part of the contractor scope.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get the aspect on the pricing, because either way you'll have to do it, Lincoln. But I mean, again, I take what you're saying. I'm just saying either way, the service provider has to do it. The impact on the pricing, are you talking from a timelines perspective?
Time will cost them money, yes, because they've got to basically, the longer the site is exposed, obviously there is risk, and also for them, for their personnel, the time period dragging out, there will be a cost element linked to that.
And our BOQs don't make provision for that aspect.
With regards to, sorry for interrupting, that's exactly the problem is that we don't get all the buildings to be removed at one time. That would be under more controlled conditions, because then you've got a situation where you do one cleanup, one investigation, all these things. But now each building's got to be done on its own and approved and given notification for. That's where the problem would be, because it's things that are unfortunately out of our control at the moment.
All right, it's fine. We register that. Obviously, we'll then come back. Mark, you want to input there?
Yes, thank you, Tip. Well, I just want to carry on with what Lincoln was saying. The problem is that if you're going to do each building separately, you're going to have a 10-day delay with the notification to the DLL, and then sending out inspector to come and check paperwork every single time. In terms of clearance for those areas, you're going to be, it's not the DLL that needs to clear it, it's the AIA. So effectively, once they've done the final air sample for that area, then that area becomes clear. The only issue comes in is that if you're going to try and overlap the systems, and what I mean by that is where you're going to have your registered contractor doing the removal of the asbestos, and then try and resheet it at the same time, the sheeting company or whoever's doing that is also going to need to be registered, or the staff would need to be trained as, they'll need to have their asbestos training done, and then they'll need to come underneath the asbestos company to do the new installation. So there needs to be dust masks, dust overalls, and so on. So it's going to be a little bit tricky if it's going to be delayed. Yeah, that's the only thing I wanted to say.
Okay. All right, colleagues, I think, your points are all noted, especially Lincoln, Peter, Mark. I think we will note that. What we'll do internally, then we'll just discuss in terms of where we think we need to just close those gaps. Just bear in mind, again, not to say that obviously if you do have a business to run and you'll know what's best. The investor obviously will look now to see, look, what's tolerable, what's not tolerable, and for us to evaluate and get a service provider on site. And if there are hiccups at the end, then we can look at and dealing with them. Then it could come to that outcome. And obviously then you'll make that decision as a business. But we will discuss internally with all the inputs and see what direction the investor will take. All right, Mark, if you can just take your hand down. I don't know if it's a legacy. Or Mark, you've got something else to say? Okay.
No, I'm done. Thank you.
All right. Francois, last comments from your side?
Thank you very much for everybody for their participation and their contributions. And yes, all the best with your tender preparations.
Thanks, Francois. Colleagues, also from my side, thanks again for your contribution. I think briefing sessions and new sectors is always, well, for my end, always a learning experience. So I think these inputs that you also share with us at these sessions, we take it, because then in other similar projects, then we know better. We might not be experts, but definitely we'll know grass level knowledge of the sector. So definitely what we'll do is please ensure that your information is in the chat box. Just double check and ensure your email address is correct, everything and so forth, because communication thereafter will then flow from those people who've inserted the information in the chat box, especially after all the aspects that we still need to just come back to you on. Please double check that. Posisa from our office will just remain 10 minutes after the session, just to ensure that whoever still wants to complete can complete. But like I said, we'll use attendance of this info session. We'll use the chat box as confirmation of attendance of this briefing session, colleagues. Thanks again, colleagues. Good luck and looking forward to all of your proposals. Thank you. Bye.